welcome everybody. It's good to have you with us. This is a celebration of a new album called The Healing Power of 40 Hertz, Volume 2. And we are here with Dr. Richard Gold, my colleague from Meta Mindfulness Music. And Dr. Gold is the one who commissioned this project, and we're going to hear from him about where this all came from. We're going to hear about what is 40 Hertz, what is this incredible scientific finding over the last few years that led us to this musical project that could benefit a lot of people. And beautiful music came out of this initiative. So I'm very happy to present to you this new album and to talk about the 40 Hertz. And we invite you to write comments on YouTube. If you write comments, our producer Zach will pick it up and ask us these questions that you have or any comment that you have. So feel free to ask us questions during this live stream. And I suggest that we begin with a short 2 or 3 minutes video, which is presenting the project of The Healing Power of 40 Hertz, Volume 2 album. Please.
Neuroscientists have established that neurons in our brains communicate at 40 hertz. In cases of Alzheimer's and dementia, fewer neurons are firing at 40 hertz. With our brain entrainment music, we seek to help restore the circuits of the brain so that there is a more coherent firing of neurons at 40 hertz, thereby increasing cognition, clarity, and alertness. In addition, studies have shown that 40 hertz brain entrainment can reduce the pain of fibromyalgia, improve sleep quality, and lessen depressive feelings.
The intention was to create music that would relax the listener, would slow down their brain waves frequency down to the frequency of 40 hertz. And so we hired a group of master musicians from India, from Iran, from the Hollywood film scoring scene, and we had them all detune their instruments down to 40 hertz, which is lower than the normal tuning of the piano. So it's a more loose and more relaxed sound vibration, and it works with that magical frequency of 40 hertz, which scientists are telling now that it has enormous healing potential for the brain and for all kinds of conditions that relates to neurological condition. So we are back, and now we have the pleasure of inviting to the conversation my partner in Metta Mindfulness Music, Dr. Richard Gold. Please join us and tell us how this, Dr. Gold, how this project started. How did it come into your awareness about this 40 hertz frequency?
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. From the beginning of my creative partnership with Yuval, starting about 13 years ago, we've been creating beautiful music by combining ancient wisdom traditions with cutting-edge neuroscience, especially the idea of brain entrainment. And the creations that we've made over these years are wonderful, and they've really been focused on creating a meditative consciousness, taking people from beta, which is what most of us are in right now, through alpha, theta, and even all the way down to delta by putting beats within the music to create deep meditative stages. And this has been very well received, and we have developed a worldwide audience through different apps, and it's been very fulfilling. I was invited to a lunch on a very short notice about a year ago, earlier in COVID. I've sort of lost in when things happen now with COVID. And I met a man named Sanjay Manchada and Dr. Jeffrey Martin, actually Dr. Sanjay Manchada. And we were all gathered together with the president of the California Institute of Human Science, innovative graduate school in Encinitas, North County, San Diego, where I'm on the board of directors. And it was just a synchronistic thing. I was just invited to this lunch to meet these two wonderful gentlemen. During our lunch, which had a wide-ranging discussion, Sanjay turned to me and he said, basically, 40 hertz. And the deeper you could look into 40 hertz, you understand that the synchronicity of us coming together for that lunch and the sort of the evolutionary potential of that one small comment, because how it shifted our work, my work with Yuval, it has been dramatic. This is a early stage of neuroscience research actually right now, the use of 40 hertz. What we do know is that, and this is in the gamma wave. So if we're in beta here, gamma's basically up here. It's the fastest brain waves we have going. And it's a wide range, but within the gamma, the 40 hertz is the sweet spot where dramatic things happen with our brains, because we've discovered now that neurons of the brain communicate at 40 hertz. So with brain entrainment, and just quickly, when we brain entrain, we actually put signals into the brain so the brain responds and begins to mimic or just balance out or work within that range too. So we're bringing 40 hertz into the brain through, and you'll see, we've all talked about how this is triple strength. But what we've known and what preliminary research has shown, and this is research coming out of major research places such as MIT and Johns Hopkins and Madison, Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, is that this kind of 40 hertz is dramatically beneficial for improving sleep, cognitive function. This is very, very important. A lot of the research is focused on dementia and Alzheimer's. Enhanced creativity, mood improvement, and pain reduction. So there's this wide range of potential study that we need to do. There actually was a study was released by MIT very recently about using 40 hertz brain entrainment on healthy individuals to make sure that it wasn't problematic, and it showed that there was no problem. And the implications of this are so profound, because maybe we can seek to prevent cognitive decline by the use of 40 hertz. A lot of the 40 hertz studies that are being done are just with raw sound, like just a beat. It's like a deep bass beat at 40 hertz. There's also photomodulation where lights are used, infrared lights at 40 hertz. You can buy 40 hertz lights. We wanted to democratize this in a sense. We wanted to make it so you didn't have to be in a clinical setting, that you could just listen to beautiful music. And that's been our mission all along, is to create beautiful music that enhanced health and consciousness. And that's the result of that. We gathered these musicians from around the world using unique instruments, instruments I never heard of, a sarangi before. I'd seen a tar in India But this is brand new, and the quality of the sound and the effect of this music, because I'm a subject of my own research, is just profound and beautiful. So that's how we got here, and we're going to continue to produce music at 40 hertz for right now, and we really want to get involved in controlled studies.
Yes. This is fascinating, really, really fascinating. And when you came to me and presented what Dr. Sanjay gave you, and then Dr. Sanjay sent to both of us some of the research, and I understood very quickly where they are, where the scientists were in a place where they play the people, the patients, they play them a tone, which is the 40 hertz tone is like the E1 on the piano, which is one of the bass notes on the piano, and it sounds something like so it's one tone, and it doesn't exist on the piano because the piano tuning, the Western piano tuning, the note E is 41.3 or something hertz. So 40 hertz by itself is in between the note E and the note D sharp, but we cannot really play it on a Western tuned piano because we don't have that key. So we were thinking about how to create music that would give people that vibration that does so well for the brain. And so I immediately thought about string instruments, because strings instruments, we can tune them down. It's very hard to tune woodwind instruments. Some flutes cannot be tuned. Some woodwinds, like trumpets and clarinets, can be extended a little bit by putting them together with their different parts, not all the way tight, but a little looser, and makes them longer, and it changes their tuning. But it's very limited. The piano, we cannot go and retune all the hundreds of strings in the piano. So I thought about string instruments, and I invited a great cellist, Dennis Karmazan, who's the first principal cellist of the Hollywood Philharmonic, to perform and record this new music that I composed for the cello. And I invited a tar player, Matin Eshari, from Iran, to record the tar. And the tar is one of the ancient form of the guitar, or the oud. The word guitar comes from the word tar, guitar. Tar means a string instrument, and you can have a dotar. Dotar means two strings. Guitar means like three strings or something. It's the ancient name. And so the tar is very ancient, and we had the santur, which is a hammered dulcimer, which was the biggest instrument that we had as far as how many strings. We had to tune maybe 40 strings, especially for that recording. So all the instruments were tuned to 40 hertz. So right in the beginning, all the music was custom made and composed to resonate and to create a lot of vibrations of 40 hertz and its overtone series. So the way sound works is if you vibrate a string at 40 hertz, there's a very faint but audible sound at exactly twice as much. So it's 80 hertz, because 40 hertz, double it by 2. There is a little 80 hertz up there vibrating as well. And there's also 160 and so on. And it's an infinite vibration series called the overtone series that goes up and get more and more and more faint. But if you cut it out, and you can do it in the laboratory, you can cut out all the overtone series, and what you are left with a very dull bass sound. It loses all its brightness. So any sound, whatever brightness you hear in any sound, is depending on its overtone higher vibrations of additional notes that are vibrating up there and give it its brightness. So we tuned the instruments to 40 hertz. Then I consulted our friend in Mumbai, India, the great sitar master, Pandit Nayan Ghosh, about what kind of healing ragas have been used for thousands of years in India, especially to relax and induce sleep. Because we wanted people to be very, very relaxed. Because Dr. Sanjay told us that all the healing processes in the brain depend on relaxation. If the patient is in a relaxed mode, there's better blood flow in the brain, there's better healing rate in the brain. So we needed to relax the people who are listening and slow them down. And so we chose those ragas that were used in India for thousands of years. And I composed new music in those 3 different ragas that were suggested by Pandit Nayan Ghosh. And then we went and recorded this music in India and in Los Angeles. And then Zach have been working with me on adding binaural beats to it, which is a brain entrainment layer, which is subliminal layer, which creates an additional layer of 40 hertz inside the brain. And we can talk a little bit more about that later in this conversation about the brain entrainment and binaural beats. But basically the triple layer is that we have a drone in 40 hertz. So all the musicians are playing, listening to the vibration of 40 hertz, and the audience hearing that 40 hertz. So there's many layers of 40 hertz that are being supported the live musicians. That's the first layer. The second layer is the live musicians playing the music of these ancient ragas that create relaxation and soothing, and they are tuned to 40 hertz. Their instruments are tuned to 40 hertz, and all the music was written in the key of E in 40 hertz. So that's the second layer. And then the third layer is the binaural beats that are subliminal, that are also pulsating if you're listening to the music in headphones. So you can enjoy the music without headphones, and then you get the 2 layers of 40 hertz impact. And then if you listen in headphones, you get a third layer of binaural beats, and we can talk a little bit more about it. But that's basically the recipe that I went for. I'm wondering, Dr. Gold, if you want to explain a little bit about the binaural beats, or about anything else that comes to mind as I was talking about this process with the musicians.
Thank you, Yuval. It's so informative. The way binaural beats works is you put one frequency in one ear, one lobe of the brain, and a second frequency in the other ear, and the brain modulates it to a third frequency. So we can achieve the 40 hertz by going 80 and 120, and the difference is 40. And binaural beats are being used quite a bit. It's being studied. The efficacy is not scientifically assured at this point, but people who use binaural beats, me included, have found it to be very, very helpful in helping my meditative process. One thing that I wanted to talk about too is our Pandit Nayan Ghosh, our sitar player. Tuning a sitar is not the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
And for him he devoted one of his sitars just to 40 hertz to work with us. And again, in the way the synergy of this event occurred is he had approached us of wanting to do something together because he's worked with us on previous albums, and it just came together so beautifully. And his participation in the sound of his sitar is just sublime and just delightful.
Indeed. Dr. Gold, I wanted to mention and ask you about few things that I heard from the doctors that we are following and in touch with about the impact of 40 hertz frequency on the brain. So I understand that it could help improve the memory function, recalling memory in patients of Alzheimer and dementia. And could you explain a little bit more what happens? What does the 40 hertz vibration does in the brain of people?
It allows the neurons of the brain to communicate more effectively because memories and cognition are located. It's not just one seed in the brain, and it allows the communication of the brain to be more effective, so that the strings of the web come together, and we're able to make a recall.
Yeah.
Something you mentioned, I think it's really important about deep relaxation and even sleep, is our brains are very, very dynamic. And sleep is so utterly important, not just so we feel better tomorrow, but long term, because when we sleep, our brains actually change size. And only because of functional MRI have we been able to learn this. Because it used to be felt that there was a brain-blood barrier, and so the brain was cut off from the rest of the body.
Yeah.
We know now that when we sleep or we go into deep relaxation, the brain changes, and little rivulets, little streams open up, and allows the brain to drain the byproducts of metabolic processes that occur. Any metabolic process has waste product after mitochondria works, and it's just like the exhaust from a car. And our brains are doing the same. In fact, our brains are so dynamic, about 25% of the energy of our body is being used by our brains. And this accumulation, or the lack of the ability for the accumulation of physical, it's not just energy or neurons now, it's actually physical byproducts, metabolic ash, we could call it, to leave the brain is so very important.
What about the plaque? I heard that from the doctors that the 40 hertz frequency encourages a certain process in the brain that leads to clearing of actual physical plaque that blocks the memory pathways.
Yep. This is what's being discovered now. It's just so exciting and so fascinating.
It's amazing. It's almost like flossing the brain pathways with sound.
Yeah. And I think what's so important is that cognitive decline you don't catch cognitive decline. It's a gradual process that goes happening over the years. And so we don't want to wait until our family members notice this. If we could do things to facilitate
yes.
brain vitality.
Yes. So I understand from Dr. Sanjay that 40 hertz is not working with people who have advanced dementia and Alzheimer, but it could work with early conditions and definitely as preventative. So early and very early, like before it started, right?
Yeah.
So that's what is recommended.
And I just anecdotally, what's been seen is with advanced Alzheimer's, people that are just basically comatose and don't really respond, when they put music on for these people and from a period of time in their life when they were young and vibrant and dancing, they respond to it. It's one of the few things that people respond to when they're deeply into Alzheimer. Sound is so dramatic and so profound. Music is so much part of our life and our consciousness and our joy. So much of the key experiences of our lives we associate with a song or music or what was happening at that time.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we could also share with people about research that we are aware of done by other doctors around the world who are experimenting with 40 hertz sound to elevate conditions that are not related to memory and not related to cognitive. What is going on with that?
Well, there's been some dramatic benefit with pain. And I think that because our brain interprets signals as pain. And if our brains are more vital, so it's been shown to be effective with fibromyalgia and systemic pain.
Yeah.
The sleep improvement certainly is something, but the other thing is mood modulation. People are I'm not going to say it treats depression. We're not going to make claims like that. But just the way when you walk into a room and some music's playing, how it can affect your mood, we could actually study this more on a more systematic way and see that we can take chronic conditions. But again, it's so important for everyone to recognize this is very early in the discovery phase now. 40 hertz and even gamma waves weren't even talked about in the consciousness movement and the spiritual movement, meditation movements. They say that in the gamma and the 40 hertz, it's when people have eureka experiences, when all of a sudden something that you've been puzzling over just you understand. Another thing they think is that this is where communication occurs sort of outside the time-space continuum, where maybe you haven't thought about someone in years and years, and you thought about it, and then the phone rings, and it's them on the phone, or you get an email from them now. That this is sort of like the web of consciousness is maybe functioning in the gamma range. It's very exciting.
It's amazing. I'm wondering, Zach, if you have any comments or questions from people who are listening.
Yes. Philip was wondering, how can he get the high-res WAV file?
I see. Can I have Dr. Gold answer that, please?
Was it about wave?
Yes. How can they get the wave?
Oh, sure. Well, let's go back. Let's go back a step. Most of us now are listening to music on streaming services with MP3s. An MP3, before we were all streaming, we were downloading, and you could download a whole album in a number of seconds, and that's an MP3. And what MP3s do is they strip out a lot of the sound in the file that they think that the brain doesn't need to hear in order for you to get the sound of the music. But when you're thinking about the therapeutic effect of sound and music, this is a very bad way. This is like, if you think about nutritionally, about how we know that like a brown rice compared to a white rice, you've stripped the nutrition out of it. You've also stripped the nutrition out of the sound when you'd use an MP3. There's something called a WAV file, which is going to be the same quality as a CD. And this has a whole lot more data. So if you're downloading a song that might take 10 seconds on on MP3, on WAV, it's going to take a few minutes. So it's almost an exponential increase in the amount of data. And you don't see this discussed or even mentioned in research that I've seen, is when they're playing sounds or music, if they're using WAV files or MP3. Now, this is very important to us. So on our website, metamindfulnessmusic.com, you can download our music in WAV. And if you're thinking of using our music for deep meditation, for healing, for cognitive improvement, I strongly suggest that you get it in the WAV file. There are a few streaming services. I know one is called Tidal that does WAV files, but the main files don't. And again, it's understandable because they have millions of songs, and their storage space would have to go up exponentially to do this. But this is very, very important to consider if you're really thinking about music for healing and deep consciousness shift and cognitive benefit.
I'd like to mention that I enjoy this album, the sound of it, just on the level of sound. It's so beautiful, just the sound that came out of these instruments that were tuned in 40 hertz. We cannot hear this on any recording. Even if you have a recording of these great musicians playing other music, it's different than what we got out of them. And I think it's because of the 40 hertz, because of the intention that we asked them to focus their mind on creating a healing impact in the brain of the listeners. And all that led to just so beautiful, exquisite sound vibration. So I invite people to listen to it, to enjoy it as music, in addition to be a medicine. And so I'm very grateful for this project, and that we got to create this. And we are working on a new album of 40 hertz music that will come out later this year, The Healing Power of 40 Hertz Volume 3.
And one of the things I would also encourage healers to use this music in sessions. You will see a benefit. Your patients often will report a benefit. That's what's happening in my clinical practice.
Yeah.
This music comes up.
Zach, do we have any additional questions at this point?
Yes. Sarah would like to know, do people have to listen to this music in headphones to receive the full benefit?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the question was about whether people should listen to the music in headphones or not. Would it make any difference to the impact of the sound?
Well, you're not going to get the binaural beats effect unless you use headphones. Probably the ideal way is if you're set up, and most of us don't have this anymore, would do play it through speakers and headphones simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Every cell of our body responds to sound. Mm-hmm. And so when you're playing through speakers, especially good speakers with a good bass woofer, you're going to have a whole body experience more. So again, if you can't listen through headphones, no problem. Mm-hmm. It's just if you, especially for research, and if you're really trying to impact someone dramatically, the headphones are recommended. And if you can use headphones and speakers simultaneously, that would be the best. And that's a place where research could be done, is to look at those different ways of listening to the music and have, scoring it in some way to see what the effects are and the efficacy.
Yes. So before we go out with the end titles, I'd like to mention to people about the one website where they can get the full high quality wave file, the best audio quality with all the vibrations, and that is at Meta with double T, metamindfulnessmusic.com. And if you go to a tab called Brain Health, and then you go to the Healing Power of 40 Hertz, you're going to get that high quality audio, which is the best quality. You can also get it everywhere. Wherever you get your music, any music service, any music platform around the world, around the internet, has this album by now. It's called The Healing Powers of 40 Hertz. And Hertz is written just H-Z. That's a symbol for Hertz, which means cycles a second. So The Healing Powers of 40 Hertz, Volume 2. You can also get Volume 1, which we created about 2 years ago when we started working on this project, about a year or 2 years ago. And Volume 1 is music that we modulated to 40 Hertz. We didn't create it in 40 Hertz. So that's the difference. And so it's a nice complement to the new album. And you could have them both. I know some people ordered both, Volume 1 and Volume 2. But the new album, the brand new album, is Volume 2. And we are currently working on Volume 3. And we're going to let you know in due time when it's released. So thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Gold, for being with us and initiating this incredible project. And thank you, Zach, for producing our live stream. And I wish you all to have a wonderful Sunday and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy music, enjoy life, and keep in touch with us through email. We'd love to hear from you. Be well.